Welcome to the latest World Cup date, the first one of the knockout stages, June 22nd. Jason Longshore, Jessica Sharman with you today. And, Jess, let's get through the first game as fast as possible because the second game is the game of the tournament, and there's about 1,000,001 things to talk about there.
Absolutely.
Germany,
It made up for the first game. The
It
first
did.
game was okay, but it was a little bit underwhelming. We've sort of bigged up these knockout games, and it wasn't the best start to our hype.
No. Germany just took care of business. I mean, we talked about how hard it was going to be for Nigeria coming in after finding out Thursday night that they were getting into this game on Saturday afternoon in France. And they put up a good fight. They had a little bit more in them than I thought, but 2 goals in pretty quick succession for Germany allowed them to, I think they kind of downshifted a little bit in the second half. Nigeria had some chances to get one and get back in it, but Alexandra Pop, goal in her 100th appearance in the 20th minute. Penalty from Sarah Dabritz, which I think was the correct call. We've seen it so many times in this tournament. A wild swing on a clearance attempt and connecting with a player's knee.
I don't like those calls, but at least it's consistent. You know, if that's the way it's going to be called, it has to be called that way throughout the tournament. So I'm not going to complain. It's my least favorite type of call. I think I even got mentioned in a video of it saying you hate these type of calls. And I do because it's a tough one. But now players have to shift their game just as goalkeepers have to shift their game. Defenders with the handballs have to shift their game. And it's an adjustment that we have to make as VAR enters the game. And unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. So players are going to need to adapt.
Yeah, this was the one that felt the most like a legit call to me. It was really reckless, barely connected with the ball, and went straight into the player's knee. It was definitely the most violent of the 3 that come to mind from the tournament. And then Germany got a goal in the 82nd. Nigeria had a chance pretty early in the second half. There were some different shouts about VAR getting involved and different things. The result felt pretty just.
Yeah, I don't think Nigeria will be happy with the 3-0. They worked hard. They did have a couple of chances. And it was good to see that they never gave up. Even at 3-0 in the sort of 85th minute, they were still bombing players forward, which was credit to them. And you have to point, look, Germany was going to win that game regardless for me. They've been solid. They have a good offense. They're still yet to concede a goal, looking to mirror their 2007 World Cup, where I believe they won the whole cup and didn't concede a goal for the entire tournament. They're still on track to do that. But for me, if you're playing on Nigeria, disappointed that they had to travel across France, across France to prepare for this game last minute. And as much as I say, look, Germany was going to win that game, that wouldn't have helped their preparation, along with one of their best players was suspended.
Yes. Yeah, Oshuala was out, and that really hurt them in the attack. They had a couple shots on goal. Germany had more of the game in terms of possession, in terms of chances, and they took care of business. And they didn't have to expend too much energy in it, but they might have some bruises along the way. This match had the second most fouls of any match in the tournament.
What was the first one?
Australia, Italy, not China, Germany, which is what I thought.
Wow, well, the Germans are getting used to being hacked at, and potentially it might be a tactic that teams continue using, because with the style of passing play Germany want to do, the only way you can really break that down sometimes is by chopping a few ankles.
Germany tried to fight back in this one. They actually had 16 of the 31 fouls.
Oof, wow.
Yeah.
Well, they're learning to adapt. Yeah, they're learning to stand up for themselves. So it's an exciting match, and I'll tell you something. They look pretty solid at the back, and they've got goals in them. So I'd say they're a real contender, and honestly, the most consistent team so far, I would say.
I would agree. They really haven't had to, I think, hit high gear for very long at a time. They've been in control for their 4 matches for the most part. Talk about a match that hit high gear and kept finding another one. Norway and Australia. It's 1-1 after extra time. Norway wins on penalties. Match of the tournament for me. I don't even have one that's close to it. This was just end-to-end, amazing attacking and defensive soccer. I mean,
But
Australia,
I'm going to tell you, not from the very, very start. The first 10, 15, 20 minutes, I found a little bit underwhelming to begin with. And I think after those sort of 15, 20 minutes where there weren't, well, bar the start with Kerr's chance, but bar that first chance, there weren't real decent chances created until a little bit into the game. And then it just went into overdrive, like insane.
Once Norway got the goal, it really kicked up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
Then Australia has to throw everything forward. And then the goal that they give up, outside of that, and that was a bad goal to give up. I think you can look at the defenders, you can look at the goalkeeper.
It was direct from the corner kick in the end, right?
No. Oh, for the Australia goal, yes. The Norway goal in the first half, though.
Oh, it was shocking.
Outside of that,
Shocking.
Australia was their best in the tournament defensively today.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that
because
mistake.
they dealt with it really. Norway up to gear with their offensive play against Australia today. They put in plenty of crosses. They were looking for those through passes all the time. And bar the one error on that defense splitting pass, they handled themselves, and their keeper had some really nice saves too.
She did. Lydia Williams was outstanding in extra time and late in the match, making some key saves. The goal for Norway, the ball originally from Savik was just a perfect pass around the back line. Herlefsen makes the run, splitting the two center backs, and then a great finish as Williams kind of got stranded. Maybe should have just kept on coming and tried to throw Herlefsen off a little bit more, but you're kind of stranded by your back.
It was a tough one for her because the ball just bounced perfectly in front of the right centre back, which meant that she was about, it almost looked like she was going to play the ball and be able to defend it. It bounced awkwardly and she sort of missed it. If you're the goalkeeper, I think she was expecting, she had two defenders surrounding the forward. She was expecting them to handle it. Once they got through, her starting position would have been too deep. So she couldn't get out fast enough, but she got caught in that no man's land where she either needed to like retract to her line or come out and sort of smash and hope to get contact on the ball. But potentially in the back of her mind, she had that concern that it was still the first half, and if she mistimes something and gets a red card, you're costing your team to 10 men earlier than it eventually ended up going down to 10 men.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They did go to 10, and we'll get to that. But Australia did find an equalizer. Sam Kerr kind of just struggling in this match overall. The effort was there. The work was there. I mean, she never stopped running. Not as sharp as we're used to seeing. And they get the goal in kind of a weird way. It's a corner, and it goes directly in from the corner. I don't think it took a touch, period. Even from
no,
the defender.
It didn't. No, and that's what I was looking for, because at first I was like, "Wow, that was such a cool flick." I thought it was a flick forward at the front post had inside hooked it or some sort of touch, but it actually looked like it went through her legs, the defender's legs, and went in. Goalkeeper scrambling to the front post, and when you have those sort of goals from corner kicks scored, you have to look at the defenders, because they had set up well for the corner. They had someone on the front post. They had a defender marking the Australian player in front of them, and goalkeeper, made the movement across the goal. So to go through three defensive players plus a couple of offensive players, you don't see those very often for that reason. But the defenders would be kicking themselves.
Yeah, they have to be. It's at least Kellen Knight with the goal, 83rd minute. From that point on until the end of regulation, both teams had chances to win it. It was back and forth. Either team could have won it before it went to extra time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Norway hit the inside of, was that in extra time or the regulation?
That was
when
late in regulation. That was one of the last touches in regulation.
It looked like it was going to hit both posts before it bounced out. That was insane.
Yeah, that was in stoppage time. I have no idea how it goes off the inside of the post and doesn't come off the other post. It stays like just maybe a foot outside the line. You go to extra time. Williams made a big save early in extra time, then made another one with her right hand that goes over the bar. Sam Kerr was brought down on a long run, but when you saw the replay, you could see she was going down before the contact.
Kerr was frustrated.
No call. She was.
You could tell she was playing frustrated. It was one of those days where I feel like throughout this World Cup, everything she's touched has gone in the net. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
no matter whether she half heads it, if it makes weird contact with her head, everything she hit was going in the net. And this game was the opposite. Every contact she made, no matter how hard she jumped, no matter how hard she worked, it was just hitting her awkwardly and going wide. And for me, as soon as she missed that one in the first or second minute, where she sort of tried to go to the near post instead of across the goalkeeper, it wasn't her day.
No, it wasn't. She had the one that she did put into the back of the net, but she was offside. Delayed flag from the AR, which was handled 100% correctly. Let's talk about the referee, because there was a big decision that she did give against Australia here with a red card to Kennedy for Dogso. What did you think when that one came up in the 104th minute?
I'm always team defensive line, and for me, it's a tough one. Once the red had been given, I don't think she can overrule it as clear and obvious, because I think there's enough fact in that you could say it was a goal-scoring opportunity. But I just think it's a little bit too far out the box. The goalkeeper's still there to beat. And I'm not 100% sure the Norwegian player had full contact on the ball. It was more of one of those 50-50s where, you know, the player was dribbling, but she'd taken quite a heavy touch. It was a stupid foul. She's holding onto her jersey, and halfway out of the field, you see challenges like that all the time, but the defender has to be smarter. You don't be pulling someone's jersey when you're the last defender. I thought it was a little bit too far outside the box. I thought it was going to be a yellow card, but once she gives red, it's not a clear and obvious error on the field, so obviously the original decision is going to stand.
Yeah, there's nothing to come back on that one. I thought it was red watching it live, and then when I saw it back, I'm like, yeah, that is a pretty good ways away from the goal. Maybe not, but I think the nature of the foul, reaching around, like not pulling even the shirt from behind, but reaching around, almost trying to conceal it a bit and dragging down, I think it was the right call. It felt like the right call at that moment. I thought the referee, and a lot of people disagree, I think mostly Australian people disagree. I mean,
they have a reason to disagree. It was a tough one because nearly all the key decisions seemed to impact Australia. Right. You know, they were all negative fouls towards Australia. A red card, a turned over penalty.
The handball. Well, let's go back to the handball in the first half. It was pointed out handball on the field, conversation with the VAR, referee goes to take a look at it, and the referee overruled herself. And
that
said,
takes
no
big
handball.
cojones.
I agree. I think it was correct. According to the new definition, the arm was not extended, and I didn't think it was outside the silhouette. It looked normal. It
was just a weird... I thought it was a sloppy style play from the defender regardless. When you've watched penalties be given for handballs, I think she is nuts to try and lean her shoulder in as much as she did. And you saw her argument. She's saying it's my chest, my shoulder, and maybe it was. But the way she leaned in so awkwardly, almost as to do, you know, one of those skill shoulder balls, you know, like what the freestyle footballers do. That's what it looked like. And for me, you're in the box defending. Why? It just seemed a weird decision to play the ball like that. And she was almost asking the referee to make a call. From a couple of angles, it looks like it makes contact with the arm, but still it's kind of tucked in. It's not a chicken wing, those kind of things. Right. So watching back eventually, I have to agree with you. At first, I was like, no, because there's a couple of freeze frames where it does look bad. But I just think it was a weird decision from the defender to play the ball like that. And I hope, well, not if she plays England. I hope she doesn't learn her lesson. But I just think players need to learn. Don't give the referee a chance to call something, because there's going to be a lot of referees that don't have the self-confidence to overrule themselves.
Exactly.
You know, they have an ego complex. We're humans, right? No one wants to admit they got something wrong, particularly something so substantial as that. No one wants to watch themselves back and see them get something wrong. It's an uncomfortable thing to do. And that's why, to be fair to the ref, you have to praise her on that one. And I think she did have a good game. And what I liked about her was she wasn't afraid to look back on her decisions and to listen to the advice. And she took some stick from both teams and handled herself well and called a very, very tough game. Like, that wasn't an easy game to call.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was just so end-to-end and so fast and so well played that You know, I mean, the work that the referee put in on the field on this one, how much ground she covered, having to
That's
make
what I'm
those
gonna
tough
say. The
decisions.
stats on her mileage, because I remember on Fox, obviously it has the kilometers the player run on the sub, and a sub that was made at 60 minutes had nearly ran 10 kilometers. You know,
Yeah.
imagine what the referee must cover, because it was end to end stuff, and sometimes we've given them a lot of hard criticism, but it was a good performance for me.
Yeah, same here. I think it's honestly one of them that stand out to me because of how difficult the match was. So extra time after the red card, still chances. Australia had a couple of looks going the other way. It was mostly Norway, but they're not able to find the back of the net. One great ball from Hansen really late. Shot was blocked out for a corner in the 115th minute. And each team forced saves in the dying minutes, almost like back to back. One into the field save, other into the field save, right at the goalkeepers, but still trying to find a winner.
It takes concentration at that end, though. So goalkeepers deserve praise because they're exhausted too. It's a mentally 90 minutes is mentally draining for the goalkeeper, physically as well in a game that busy. For them to stay as active at the end and make some great saves is important. And like you say, it's a credit to both teams, particularly Australia. When you're down to 10 men, it would have been, or 10 women, I should say. It's very easy to have just parked the bus and sort of tried to hold out for that penalty shootout in their heads. But they didn't. They were trying to get that win, and maybe they knew their penalty takers weren't too confident.
yeah, they were trying to end it in extra time, unable to do so. 46 shots combined between the two
That's
teams
nuts.
in this one. 27 for Norway, 19 for Australia, 8 on target for Norway, 4 on target for Australia. Fairly even in possession, was 53% for Australia, about what we would have expected coming in with their attack. But then it goes to penalties, and you kind of feel like going to penalties that, okay, Australia survived, they had the red card, they
Their
battled.
keepers had a real good
The
game.
keeper's been great. Australia's the favorite here, and it just never got going, and I think the Sam Kerr miss off
It
the
started
top
at that.
for them.
That was the epitome. That shot characterized Kerr's game. You know, as soon as she was walking up, in my head, I'm thinking, and I'm explaining to the people I'm sat with that this player just signed a, or she has been offered a $1 million contract, £1 million contract, even, I think it is. But she just has the weight on her shoulders. And honestly, maybe this was sort of an accumulation. She has been the figurehead of Australia. She has almost been carrying the team on her back plenty of times. And it's a lot of pressure to walk up from that halfway line and take a penalty shootout. And maybe it got to her. Maybe she was thinking about the chances she's missed in the game, the saves, how nothing's gone her way. But for her to not hit the target before the game, you would have put your money on her scoring. But it's not the first one of this tournament. You have to look back to, was it the first game of the tournament where she had her penalty saved and only scored the rebound?
Yes, that's right.
So, I mean, her penalties haven't been fantastic throughout the tournament. But like I say, to miss the target, it was disappointing, and she missed by a ways.
She did. It was a bad miss, and that does get in your head. I mean, a shootout for me is so much momentum back and forth, and that one is the gut punch to the Australian team. They missed the next. Norway is perfect.
Great, no, they didn't miss. It was a very good save for the goalkeeper. Let's give her the credit.
Yeah. I didn't mean miss. My fault. I'm sorry, goalkeepers. My apology to the goalkeepers union. It was a really good save, and the feet were on the line. I think it was both feet on the line when the shot was taken. And
so it can be done.
Right.
It can be done.
No issues with any goalkeeper coming off the line in the shootout. And Norway was in complete control. They converted all of their kicks, and they just looked so confident doing so.
Yep. And they were great penalties. They were struck nicely, placed in an area where the goalkeeper, I think, guessed right twice, Williams. But you can't save them when they're struck as nicely as they are. And honestly, though, Norway got the first. They had the first penalty, and when you're 3-0 up after those two Australian misses, that automatically psychs out the Aussies. The third penalty taker took a nice penalty, but they only got a chance to take 3 because they missed the 2.
Right. And at that point, it's done. I mean, this is one of the best Women's World Cup matches that I can remember. Very even, very open, very exciting to watch for a neutral. Just a great advertisement for the game. Kind of felt like it could be a toss-up coming into it. I thought Australia would be better. And if you had told me that they kept Norway to 1 goal, I would have told you that Australia wins it.
Yeah. I really thought it was going to be sort of a 3-2 game, something like that. And 1-1s don't sound like the most thrilling game, but from the outside, maybe not. But everyone that watched it was in for a treat. And I'll tell you something, if England gets through against Cameroon, it's going to be a tough game regardless. But I am glad it went for 120 minutes.
Well, that's something we talked about as we start to look ahead on last night's Cup date. Kelly and I were looking at the pathways for some of the favorites in the tournament, and England has a great pathway to the final because you have Cameroon in the match tomorrow morning, and that feels like a game that England will be
I'm telling
favored
you,
in.
guys, please don't let Jason talk about this because Jason had Australia in the final. So if England loses now, I'm putting it on Jason.
Well, wait a minute now. They've got a great pathway, and they're going to get a Norwegian team that, if they get through Cameroon, and they should, but if they get through Cameroon, they'll get an Australia team that did play an extra 30 minutes.
A Norwegian team.
Sorry.
You're still
trying
hoping.
to put Australia in there. Still trying to find a way. Norway played an extra 30 minutes, and it was an intense 120 minutes.
Yes,
they're
it was.
Feel that in the next match.
Yeah, and I think that kind of at least evens up the fact that England would have had a day's less rest. I mean, I can't see the game going to extra time. Not trying to get too overconfident going into it, but I would see maybe a 2-0 win tomorrow. I'd like. And yeah, I think that negates the extra day's rest, and Norway's exhausted both physically and mentally because the concentration it takes to go 120 and then up in a penalty shootout, I think that's what pushes us potentially over the line.
It definitely could, and England needs to have the type of performance that Germany did today, where they get a couple of goals in the first half and can decelerate a little bit, because that energy level over this knockout round is going to be very important when you look at what some teams have to go through in this.
Yeah, I mean, look at Brazil tomorrow.
Yeah,
Brazil
exactly.
tomorrow.
France-Brazil will be a brutal match either way. U.S.-Spain on Monday, I think, will be a difficult match. I think Sweden-Canada will be a difficult match. They're very evenly matched.
And something I'm glad about from England's standpoint, though, is they didn't have an easy group. Every game was a battle in the group. And I think that's something that favors the Lionesses as well. If you're looking at the US, they had 2 really walkthroughs, and Sweden, as much as I think was a closer game, it was a win, a comfortable win. And I think England faced some of the tougher opponents in closer games, which is a good thing because to go from 0 to 100 real quick in a tournament is tough. Whereas I feel like England have kind of been able to grow into the tournament through just increasing challenges.
I agree. I think England here gets those goals they need early and they take care of business. I think it's going to be a match that feels a lot like the Germany match did today. A 2 or 3-0 win that's pretty comfortable. And that's what they really need. I think the earlier you put this one to bed, the better off you are for your run the rest of the way.
Oh, I agree completely. But one thing I don't want to see is, look, I understand if we're 3-0 up with 70 minutes making some changes, but don't make those changes too soon. Let the players... They don't want rest at this point. Let the players get their 90 minutes under the belt and feel good about themselves.
The team is smart enough and good enough to know how to rest in the match as needed. With
just how you said with Germany. Take the foot off the gas a little bit, enjoy the game, but give the players their minutes because they deserve it.
Yeah, knock it around a little bit, but you can slow down. France-Brazil, I don't think anybody's slowing down. This feels like a pretty wild game because Brazil's a team that has scored goals early in this tournament. They've gotten out in front of teams. It's been closing games that has been the issue for them, and I think that's going to be their biggest problem tomorrow. France has had a tougher road than we expected, and I don't think they've really looked all that convincing outside of the first match against South Korea, which was the worst team in the group. They have to step up here.
No, I think France has a hometown to impress, and they have been underwhelming. They were the favorite for nearly everyone, that made a bracket, and they've been a bit disappointing, and they'll be shocked that they ended up against Brazil. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the way they expected their bracket to fit them. I think they thought it was going to be an easier first round game, and it could be anyone's match, and I'm excited for it. I would say that's the Australia-Norway of the game days tomorrow.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, I think for France, we've kind of questioned mentally where they are and are they handling the pressure of being the hosts and having those expectations. In a match like this, with what Brazil's done in this tournament, even if Brazil gets out 1-0 or even 2-0, if things really are bad to start for France, Brazil has given up goals late. Marta hasn't played 90 minutes. Cristiane hasn't played 90 minutes. They've struggled late in games. It's an older team. France
Yes.
has to keep their heads throughout here because even if they fall behind early, they can come back and win.
No, I agree. And France has goals in them from set plays. Brazil isn't the most tall team at the back. They're older. They're not maybe as mobile at the back. And I think they have a chance, France. But like you said, it's all about keeping their head and responding positively in the right way and just putting all the little pieces together. They've been a bit shaky at the back at times, and they need leadership tomorrow.
I feel like this is the game where, speaking of that leadership, Henri really steps up. It's been a fairly quiet tournament for her. They need her big here defensively, but also starting those attacks and getting this team going.
Yeah, and I'm excited for it. That was the game that, like I said, it wasn't one I expected in the bracket. I didn't see Brazil finishing in that third place. We thought they might push a little bit to get out of that third place, but you know what? With the way France is playing, they're definitely beatable.
They are, and that's your afternoon match tomorrow. Morning match, 11:30 kick. It's England and Cameroon. Two pretty exciting matches and two teams in England and France that have been mentioned as potential winners here. So you get a chance to see these two, and you're going to see a little comparison now with what Germany put up today. People will be looking at England and France to replicate that, and the pressure starts to mount a bit now that we're in the knockout round.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And all it takes is one mistake for one of these big teams, and then the team they're facing to just park the bus and defend, and you're out of here. Tournament over.
Well, hoping we get as exciting a match as we had with Norway and Australia tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow evening to tell you all about it and get you ready for the United States and Spain on Monday, because there's a lot of things to talk about there. When Jill Ellis is having behind closed doors training sessions, you have to wonder what's going on with Julie Ertz, who's been injured, Alex Morgan, who came out at halftime. Are there maybe more issues than we've been told so far? We'll get into that tomorrow when we have a little more information, and we'll recap everything from the second day of the knockout round. Thanks for listening.